discussion of the night. Director, can you hear me? Oh, thank you. Welcome back to a broadcast. This is KUTV Primetime News, and now it's time for a discussion of the night. We want to talk, it's Money Monday, and we want to talk about money, Finance Act, and everything in between. Now, just to bring it to attention, the Finance Act 2023 has been suspended for the second time today by the High Court. That means that the High Court has forwarded that case to the Supreme Court for Chief Justice Martha Koome to select a panel that will now rule on that matter. And tonight I'm joined by Joku Justice in studio, that is a lawyer, and later on we are expecting the Great North Member of Parliament, Beatrice Elachi, to hear from her what she has to say about the ruling on the Finance Act 2023 that was done today. Welcome to KUTV, Joku Justice.
Thank you very much, Anne.
Karibu tena na tena. Now I want us to jump right into this discussion.
Yes.
Like I've said, the Finance Act 2023 has been suspended for the second time today. Remember, it was suspended on 30th June, just a day to when it was supposed to be implemented, right?
Yeah.
Now, what do you make of that ruling that was just made today?
I think, once again, Anne, thank you very much for having me. The ruling that was made today by Justice Mugure Thande is one that in a way progresses the jurisprudence of our country. Why do I say this? I will begin from the Constitution of Kenya 2010. It is very interesting, and it is a very nice thing that we have the most progressive constitutions in the world. And may I say that as a country, we should know that we have the most progressive constitution, and two, it is one of the most important legal instruments that we have in this country. And that is where we are able, at any point in time where we have disparities or issues with the law, we are able to go back to the courts, and they are able to make basically determinations on the issues that we face as a country. Because Article 2 of the Constitutions bestows the supremacy of the Constitution, and Article 1 bestows the sovereignty of the Constitution to the people. So the people are the most fundamental and important resource that we have as a country. So today's ruling basically speaks to that. And to the extent that it speaks to the issue of the finance bill and suspending it is because probably its implementation going forward may go to the extent of infringing and violating constitutional rights that are provided for in the Constitution.
All right. Now, when you say that today's ruling now just puts it as now the court having its jurisprudence, as you put it, and we see that EPRA, for instance, has implemented the 16% VAT that is in that Finance Act 2023. Does this really quantify to what you're saying? And let's just put it as this. Are there any actions or measures that can be put in place past this now that EPRA has already implemented that 16% VAT?
Definitely, Anne. You see, at the moment, EPRA went ahead after the court issued its orders. EPRA went ahead and on the 1st of July 2023 approved the extra 8% on VAT on fuel products. So basically, it's a good thing that Senator Ukio Mtata of Busia County has gone ahead to court and made an application to cite EPRA for contempt, because basically Article 2 of the Constitution envisages that each and every person is bound by the Constitution. No one is above the law. So having the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority deciding to go ahead and act in contravention of what the courts ruled on is pretty unfortunate, and it's not something that should have at all happened. So going forward, they have already been, there's already a case pending in court. They have been cited for contempt, and they're going to be, later on, there are going to be orders that are going to be issued against them. Whether the court will decide to ask them to pay fines, whether the court will decide to probably have members of EPRA or the board who decided to make that decision cited as well for contempt as individuals, we are yet to see that.
And now, when legalists say that the Finance Act now, if it remains freezed, the country will not run as it's supposed to. What do you make of that statement? Now that we are 10 days after 1st of July, when that Finance Act was supposed to have been implemented already, what do you make of that?
You see, Anne, the country was still running before the implementation of the Finance Act.
Yeah.
The country has been running with or without this particular Finance Act, the Finance Bill. And I'd like to take you back to 2017, when there was almost a similar bill in place that tried to bring a raft of measures that, in a way, according to what the court enumerated upon at that time, infringed on the rights of citizens. It is a similar thing that we are witnessing today, that the government decides to proceed through members of parliament and implement measures. And if you look at the application that was filed by Okiya Omtata and other petitioners, implemented measures that were outrightly in contravention of the Constitution, outrightly disregarded the canons of taxation, outrightly went ahead to basically, for lack of a better term, bamboozle its way through Parliament. Yeah, because it lacked public participation. It went ahead and in Okiya Omtata's application proceeded without discussion at the Senate. You realize that the moment the Finance Committee had a discussion and regarded some of the commentaries that were given from the public, what went on to happen is there were some amendments that were brought in place at the committee stage that initially were not in the bill. What does that mean? It means that members of the public were not able to have a discussion regarding those specific amendments that were introduced during the committee stage. But the canons and principles of taxation, our constitution itself, mandates that the principle of public participation is key, and it's a legal doctrine that is widely spread in many developed jurisdictions and many law-abiding nations. So it is imperative that this Finance Act be subject to public participation. It is imperative that it keeps and lives to the purpose and values of the Constitution. Because minus that, then we are a nation that does not follow the law, and we are guided by the rule of law. So we should follow the law.
All right, Joko.
Yes.
Now, is there time really for the government to bring this back to the people now? Now, the public participation, now that we see that it has already been assented, right? It is in court. We're waiting at the court's ruling. But is there time really for that?
And allow me to say the beauty, as I said when I was beginning, the beauty of the Constitution that we have is that we are a country guided by the rule of law. What this means is, according to what Lady Justice Mugure Thande said today, is that despite the fact that it was assented to, on the 26th of June, does not cast it on stone that it has to be followed. The court has already issued a suspension on its implementation. And despite the fact that EPRA proceeded to, in a way, set out the measures on the fuel VAT at 16%, it does not mean that all the other provisions of the Finance Act will be implemented. Once the law has issued that, has extended the suspension of the Finance Act, that will be what will stay. And what is going to happen basically is the CJ, Justice Mugure Thande, as the High Court judge, has the discretion to certify, any matter that has substantial issues and forward it to the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice will empanel a bench of an uneven number for decision-making purposes. Then that bench will determine those issues. What does questions or substantial issues mean? When a High Court judge has to forward it to the Chief Justice. It basically means that substantial questions are basically those questions or areas that are so fundamental and of great public importance that go to infringe and violate the constitutional rights that we have. And how does this specific act do that? Yeah, it does that by, one, imposing some taxes that we may not need as a nation. Why would someone need to pay housing levy, for example? Okay, one, for and lack a guarantee that they will actually get a house after a certain period of time. The canons of taxation, one of them is certainty. Okay, one of them is economy, and economy presupposes that the canon of economy, yeah, which is the canon of taxation, presupposes that every individual who pays taxes has to be able to conveniently pay their taxes and still be able to go back and have something left in their pockets kugharamia basically mahitaji yao, to be able to venture into business and everything. But what the situation we have right now is that there is introduction of so many taxes that the common mwananchi today yeah, is not able to pay their taxes, pay NHIF, NSSF, housing levy. There are so many.
All right, before I come back to you, Joku, can you allow me to link up with Dagoretti Member of Parliament Beatrice Elachi, who is joining us via Zoom. Good evening, Mheshimiwa. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, welcome to KUTV, and I will just begin by asking you what I've asked our lawyer right here in studio. What do you make of the Finance Act ruling today, being that this is its second suspension?
Well, thank you very much, and I hope my network is good.
Yes, we can hear you.
We are able to communicate?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. First of all, one thing we have to appreciate is that for the first time in the 10 years that we've had our new constitution, or beyond 10, we have seen a robust participation of Kenyans and really following up to see what happens and whether we appreciate that there is importance of public participation. And when we do that public participation as Parliament, that we must indeed see how we can include some of the findings or some of the resolutions or memorandums that citizens have given us. And so after we passed the finance bill, we knew very well Senator Omtata had already gone to court even before we finalized the finance bill. And so we knew in the end of the day, we would have to go through this process, which is a very important process, because for some of us, I think we felt, number one, there were key issues that we needed, as in Parliament, to agree and ensure that we can change and listen to what Kenyans are saying, especially the issue of the fuel, the issue of the housing. The band can be a conversation on different levels. But these two, I think, are the critical. And for me, when now the courts come in and say they still agree with what was filed in court, and now there is need to have a 3-bench, it means, first I want to really thank the judge, because what the judge did, she realized something that is of importance of the country, and therefore I cannot just come out and do it alone. It's important for the Chief Justice to bring in a bench that now will look at all the issues and be able now to thresh and now explain properly to Kenyans, and also to question Parliament if we did wrong or if we did right our public participation, and why is it that we didn't pick some of the issues that Kenyans really questioned. The other thing for me, and that is one thing I've kept on saying, is that how I wish, and I know yesterday I said it in Busia, and I'm repeating it, how I wish we can have a conversation of the mechanisms of the housing. Remember, in the beginning, it was going to be there, yes, but it was really 3%, but with some sort of reinforcing in what percentage Kenyans or those who are paying will pay. Then we changed it to a tax, which now becomes mandatory to every Kenyan, but at the same time, which has many questions of the mechanisms. Mm-hmm. Nobody would wish to have a bad house. Every Kenyan would wish to have a house. Mm-hmm. Yes. But then the mechanisms of ensuring you have that house, we have to be clear whether we are doing it for Nairobians. Yeah, I keep on reminding people, yes, if you are doing it for Nairobians, can we have a house that has dignity? Because the Constitution says, yes, in Article 43, that indeed those social needs should be taken care of. But then at the same time, it doesn't tell you just to do a house. It tells you to do a house that has dignity, mm-hmm. that it can serve every Kenyan who is a young Kenyan with a family. Mm-hmm. And I always give examples of the houses that were done way back even before we were born. That was Maringo or Fafa. When you look at those houses and the rooms then, and those were affordable housing then, you find it's a house that has accommodated very many, and it was a humble house, but a house with dignity. We are saying that when you're doing affordable housing, please give us a place for a school. Mm-hmm. Because you remember, you cannot just give me a house and I don't have a school, I don't have a hospital, yet at that time we are bringing in an infrastructure of again more than 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. Mm-hmm. Those are households. So you can imagine if one household has I don't know how many family members. Mm-hmm. I am saying a fuel levy. Mm-hmm. How I wish we looked at East Africa and ensured and asked ourselves, do we want to just increase our VAT like East Africa, where we have all our East African countries, most of the VAT starts from 18 to even 20% to most of the countries. It's only, by the way, in Kenya where we are still low. But you see now in Kenya we are still low, and we have so many other levies that we bring in, and it strains. So if we can put our VAT at one level, 18% or whatever, and then you take care of all these other levies that we put on top, every Kenyan will feel, yes, we are burdened, but it is one burden we are carrying, all of us. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at the now fuel, the way we've put it at 16%, fine. Mm-hmm. How I wish we would have done it staggering, so that you put a certain amount within this finance bill, mm-hmm. and we move, because we know, yes, we have to survive. We know we have come from post-COVID. One of the things I want to tell Kenyans, we can also not run away that there was a time the world just came to a stagnant for 3 years, and so everyone came down. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when we are doing that, we must have a recovery structure so that other companies can now, the companies that had closed, or the businesses of small businesses that had closed down, can come back through a process where government must appreciate that. And I know sometimes when we say that, people feel, oh, Azimio, you don't want to. It's not the issue of Azimio. On this pillar of economic, it was done by both. KK did theirs, mm-hmm. Kenya Kwanza did theirs, Azimio did theirs. And all of them were talking about recovery, the economic recovery pillar. Mm-hmm. And so what we are saying, the government can look at both and ask itself, how can we ensure we are recovering, we are paying our debts, which I support fully. Mm-hmm. In terms of paying our debts, I support fully. But I say, it is same Kenyans who are paying that debt. How do you ensure? For example, now, when you come in and you bring in, when you increase now NHIF, mm-hmm. NSSF, remember, at that time, mm-hmm. a company was paying maybe NSSF 10 million. What you've added is this company to look for another 10 to be 20 million, because you just doubled 20 million shillings, which was never there, but they are supposed to remit. If they don't remit, then they will find themselves again with a challenge. And so what are companies now doing? Most of them are going to retrench quietly. Most of them are going to put many people on contracts so that they don't pay this amounts. So as much as your government is thinking they have developed a better way of collecting revenue, in another sense, they have just closed down many other companies to reduce and ensure, even if they will open any other branch, what you do, you now take the same employees and now start straining. So you don't open up for any employment because you know you'll find yourself in challenges, but you make sure you start now reducing, putting them on contracts, and it will be, instead of us now recovering, we are going to find ourselves again in more crisis than we had, because more people will lose jobs, and those who have been looking for jobs, they don't have anywhere to get these jobs. And that's why we are saying the fuel levy, that levy we need it, and how I wish we can have a table where to negotiate all these things, because I think one thing I want to request government is that when people say they want to discuss, that does not mean a handshake. This country is for all of us. All of us would wish to see a country that is developing so that we can see the fruits and transformation for our people. And while we transform, we want to see citizens transforming. It's very unfortunate where yes.
Right, Mheshimiwa, I would love to know from now a legislature's standpoint, what's next after this ruling, now that the Finance Act remains suspended? Does it mean that the 2022 Finance Act now continues?
Has to, yes. I mean, that's the fallback. You have no any other fallback. And you can't say you want to go now back to Parliament to start another one. It can't work that way, because the ruling was just done to now give a way forward of what needs to happen. And so we have to wait until now the CJ brings in this bench and they have to go through it. They know that it is of importance of the country, and therefore we are hoping it will be a bench that will put in this, and we see, because whatever ruling that will come, that is what we will have to follow. And for me, it is very unfortunate, because these are some of the things, if we were sitting down and negotiating in Parliament, we don't need the judiciary to be the arm now to decide how the finance bill will be, but it is going to happen that way. So it's very unfortunate that we had an opportunity as Parliament, would have just sat down, agree on these issues that every Kenyan was crying at, and have a good way forward. But let's see what will happen with the three bench, and definitely as Parliament we will have to follow. If we shall be told we have to go through and re-amend, that's what we will have to do after the ruling. But for now, you can only fall back to your 2022 finance bill and continue using it to serve Kenyans.
Now, before we let you go, I would love to know, how can Kenya come up with mechanisms that now will, all parties involved will now accept and be content with the Finance Act moving forward?
Well, I think, now this is my opinion, and sometimes when I say that, I always find myself in a lot of trouble. I think right now, because the finance bill is going to now go to a three bench, I think we can say as a team, we now look at what the courts are saying, unless we want to now do other things. But for me, the most important thing is to look at the courts and to now put together our minds, both sides, to be in court. To see how we move with the case. If that is what we are really, we have to be truthful also to Kenyans. If we are fighting because of the finance bill, if we are on this because of the finance bill, then let's follow. We have a process that has opened up the best we can do is to do more public participation and civic education to tell Kenyans what was really in this bill, so that they understand better. Yes, we've done a robust public participation, but after that, I think Kenyans need to know what did we pass, so that people won't feel on this side, oh, why are these ones stopping government? And on this other side, we are saying, look, we have been saying this, and I think it's good to have a very clear, elaborate way of making Kenyans understand, so that we have a good support base of what we have done is rightful and what Kenyans wanted is this, and therefore what will also come to the courts, we are hoping can be of supporting Kenyans and making it better, that they will wish to pay their taxes, because you cannot stop paying taxes, you will be charged, but at the same time they are saying, give us a breather for us to be paying in this manner until we get to see we have grown, we are growing, our growth is there, our GDP is growing. I think every Kenyan will be okay, and especially by the time we get to know how much have we paid in debt. When Kenyans start seeing debt is going down, by the way, they will be very supportive. So I don't see why we should really have this. And I know each side is just, it has been like that since we ever finished the elections. But I want to plead that sometimes it's to have a conversation on an issue. And by the way, Kenyans are very good in that. And everything will come to a purpose where we realize we all love this country, we all want this country to grow, we all want jobs, and these jobs must be found within government and in informal sector. That informal sector is what we are saying, we are going to kill it, and it carries the majority of Kenyans because of the taxes, especially we put on fuel.
Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa, for your time tonight. I think we'll let you go at this point, in case you have something else to add before we come back to studio.
Well, yes, just to also thank the media. I think you have been very consistent in following up the issue. And for me, I think what we need to say as a country, we want to see a country that accommodates everyone with their opinions, but at the same time, we also want to have a country that appreciates. We can't destroy Kenya because we have no any other place. Many people always feel very disappointed with us. Our neighbors are the same. But one thing I know in Kenya, we have the resources, the monies are there. We can be able to do so much if only we can just follow through, but also appreciate that without destroying the country we have, we must agree to talk to have a good answer that takes care of all Kenyans.
Thank you so much for your time. Now, Joku, Justice, we started with you, and now I want us to wind up with you. I'm being told about time, and I would love to know your opinion, just as we've heard from Mheshimiwa. What do you suggest should be put in place now for everybody in future to agree with the Finance Act and all parties to be content?
Thank you once again, Anne. On the issue of what needs to be put in place going forward, the only reason we have the act in court is because there are parties that felt that certain issues were not addressed. So basically what needs to happen is that these issues that we left pending, whether there were instances where rights have been infringed, these are the issues that need to be addressed. And allow me say that it is not that this act does not have some certain provisions that will endear our life in the right way. It definitely does. Probably the president has some good thoughts and ideas in his mind regarding where he would like to take the nation. What, as legal practitioners, we are saying is that the process within which this act was passed yeah, and some certain provisions in it that infringe the constitutional rights of citizens needs to be relooked, and they need to be addressed once more. The moment that is done, and as Mheshimiwa said, the moment everyone is brought to the table, yeah, and their ideas are welcomed and their ideas are accommodated, then that is the instant when we'll be moving forward in the right way as a nation. Because objectively speaking, I do yearn for that moment when our politicians, being members of the legislature, will delve into issues, discuss each and every one of them without them considering their political affiliations, but with them looking at the objectivity of each and every provision based on what the Constitution says, based on the spirit of our laws, and based on the rule of law. And most of all, ensuring conformity with the Constitution of Kenya 2010. The moment that will happen, then I will be certain that as a nation, we are going forward in the right way.
Thank you so much for your time, Joku Justice. I think we'll wrap it at that.
Okay.
This conversation never ends, and we're looking forward to bringing you back here to